Morning, students. Today I'll continue with from where we left off. So protected access specifier. Uh, we yesterday we have seen public access specifier, private access specifier, or modifier. Now you have seen that all the programs are quite same. All programs are about the employee class only. So it becomes much easier for you to understand the program, one program after the other program. Now those of you who are studying very sincerely, okay, you will find it much easier as I explain one program after the other. Okay, so uh, for me also explaining the program won't take that much time, so that way I will have more time if you want to go through or revise again. And keep in mind that daily practice is necessary. If you just what I explain, if you might understand, but if you don't go through the program, okay, pretty soon you will forget it again. So programming is such that okay, daily practice is necessary. Okay, but once you understand the concept very well, you will not forget it for a long, long time. So now let's continue with the classes. So protected access specifier or modifier. Okay, now this topic is actually in inheritance chapter. Okay, so this is just a definition, this is just a small topic. Okay, so the protected access specifier plays its role in inheritance, that is when the new class are derived from the existing class. So from the parent class, okay, when a child class is derived, like that. So from the base class another class is derived. So that in that case this protected access specifier is used. Yesterday we saw that I told you that why we use this access, why we need this access specifier, right? In order to for more for data security, data hiding. The concept of data hiding was there. So restrictions on the members of the class. So the class defines the members of the object. Okay. So in the context class under consideration, the protected access specifier uh, behaves as a private specifier. We will discuss more about protected access specifier in okay. So in this in this chapter, that is inheritance chapter, we'll be discussing about that. Now if you see this table, okay, so table gives the comparative view of various access specifier indicating which part of the program can access the member. So here this table clearly defines the three access specifiers, okay, and then what type of permission or how they can access. Okay, so regarding the class, okay, so the access permission to is given to public, to the private to access the class. Protected also to access the class is yes, and public also to access the class is possible. Okay, however in the terms of subclass we have still not seen any subclass program till now. Okay, but when we come to inheritance, we will see that. So uh, and also in constructors and destructors. So here in under private subclass, access permission is not available. So subclass cannot access the members. uh, but for public and protected, the access permission is given to the subclass, so subclass can access the members also of the class. Okay, now in terms of object, when it is private, we saw yesterday that when the access specifier is private, even its own object cannot access the data members, right? And in the case of protected also it is not possible. But when it is public, we have seen yesterday that the object can directly initialize the data members. That means like emb dot emb code equals to 100, like that, right? So when the access specifier is public, the data members is accessed by the object, and then the member functions can be accessed also. Okay, but in the case of protected or private, okay, object cannot access. That means only the member functions can access the data members. Keep that in mind. Okay, so this table is good for you to make you understand. Okay, now if you see this particular program, okay, the example given below uses uh, two member functions, input data and print data. Okay, so here now you can see that two member functions are used. Okay, yesterday also we have seen that two member functions were used here. That was the mm, void input data and void display, right? Because in yesterday's program we saw that it was a change from the previous first programs that we seen. In the first program, the data was already pre-written in the program, right? User just had to run the program. But from yesterday, we saw that in the two programs, we saw that users users could enter from the keyboard using the cout and cinput stream uh, operators, right? So that's why we require two member functions. So input data and then this display. Okay, so input data to accept the data and display to display the data that was entered. So similarly here in this program also, okay, two member functions are there. That is your input underscore data. Okay, how do we know it is a function? The parenthesis. Okay, the curve bracket. So this denotes that it is a function, member function. What type of function it is? It is a user defined. Okay, this is not a predefined, this is a user defined. Okay, in case you just want to write input without this underscore, input data without any space, it is also possible. Okay, so that is what is called as a user defined member function. Okay, so input data and print data, so in the class only, and handles the input output operation to the customer class uh, data member. So here you can see that in the first part there is the comment. Okay, the single line comment demonstrate the access specifier private and public. Now here in this we use two access specifiers both at the same time. It is possible to use two, it is possible to use only one, it is possible to use all of it also. Okay, so here now we have a different class. Here the class, this is the keyword. In the class definition we have a new class name customer. So till now every class program, class and object program that we have seen is that uh, through this program you can see that you can relate with real world problems and create real world solutions, right? Like in the previous program you saw that employee, through that you can get real employee code, employee name, employee designation, employee salary. Okay, you were able to enter employee data, and like that you can create a 3 4 employee data information. Okay, 100 data employee information. So you can see that there's a this program can be practically implemented to use in real world problems and solutions. Okay, so like that here another class name customer. So you can see that this can be associated with an inventory, and this can also be associated with, let's say, like banking. Okay, so customer, so this stores details about the customer. Okay, so so here the access specifier is made private. Now yes, like I said yesterday, okay, if this access specifier is not written, okay, it's blank and the data members are just written, keep in mind that by default all the members uh, of a class are uh, by default it is made private. Okay, so if this access specifier is not written here, that means this will be um, this will be private. Okay, but since it is written here, so users can know that this data members is private. That means object cannot access this data members. Okay, now here we have the character, okay, customer name. Okay, so size index is 25, index is 25. That means maximum the customer name can be up to 25 alphabets. Okay, so similarly address, cd, okay, state, double balance. Okay, so different data types, different variable names. Okay, so all but still now the no memory space is allocated. A class definition does not allocate memory space. Okay, until and unless the class declares an object, the class creates an object. Okay, then only the memory space will be allocated for the object and for these member variables. Okay, so now you can see that here uh, the member functions are made public. Okay, in the following program you will see that their member functions can also be made private. Okay, but keep in mind that not all the member functions has to be private, because if all the member functions are private and the data members are also private, then how can access be possible, right? So that there so one has to be made public, but keep in mind that if it is private member functions can access the private data members. Okay, so this member functions is made public. Okay, so this void input here, so now you can see that here uh, this is the function name, right? Void input data void. So the return type is void. Okay, it does not return any data value, and then it does not accept any parameter. It does not pass any parameter. Okay, void. So here, because here you can see that simple cout statement. Okay, so here you can see that this is one function body and this is another function body. So this is the function name. Okay, so two functions, input data and print data. Okay, so appropriate function names are given. So this is one function body, okay, and this is another function body. So you see that these two function bodies are written inside the class declaration, because till here only the class declaration ends here by the semicolon. After that we have the main function. So the so a class, when a member function, when it is defined inside the class, right? So this is function definition. This is function definition. Okay, so in that case there is no need of function prototype. Okay, so this simply tells this is like the function prototype declaration itself. Okay, we have already seen that in a class definition, if only the member function name is written, okay, ended by a semicolon, that is a normal member function declaration, so that acts as the function prototype, right? So but in this case the member functions are defined, the function body is defined in the class declaration itself. That means the calling function has to be somewhere, where in the main function. Okay, so when we come back to the main, now in the main function you can see that, okay, since the data to be executed is here in the function body. Okay, so what is the purpose of the main function now? Only to call this call function, right? That is the only purpose now. Okay, but for that we have to, since this data has to, now keep in mind that the object creation is must. Okay, class itself on its own cannot access the data, cannot allocate memory space. So for that very reason we need to declare an object, and that is using the class name. Okay, so when you declare the object, this is the object name, cus. So cust, that means short for customer, right? So now we create, using this object we can create a real customer data. So this is your this can be represented as your physical customer. Okay, so which will hold the data. So you see that when you create the object name, okay, using the class, then you can enter the data in the function body. Okay, otherwise it's not possible. Okay, so how, so the using the object you are able to access the member function, because the member function is public. Okay, so using the dot operator cus dot input data. Okay, so this is your calling function. So this calling function will go, so the compiler will temporarily leave the main function and go and call this call function. Okay, so since there's no argument, no parameter pass. Okay, so no parameter, no argument is accepted here. Okay, except that this cout statement, enter the customer name. Okay, gets customer name. Yesterday I already discussed about the gets function, right? It accepts a string of characters, right? So what it does is, see, why we have to use gets. Now in the case of customer name, okay, now there might be some spaces in between, like the first name and last name. Now blank spaces between the first and last name, okay, uh, also occupies memory space. Okay, so what happens is, if you just use the cin input stream, okay, if you just, instead of this gets, if you just write cin, okay, customer name, then that will result in error. Okay, so in that case you have to use the gets function that yesterday also I explained to you. Okay, so this this gets function accepts the blank spaces, and it on at the end of the string, okay, it puts a null character to signify the end of that string. Okay, so similarly, enter the customer address, gets address, enter cd, gets cd, enter state, cin state. Now in this case you see that here you are using the cin and then extraction operator state. Yes, this is correct. Okay, we can use the gets function also, but here and for this cd also we can use the c input stream. Why? Because it will be only one word, suppose like city Delhi or state, okay, like that. So only one word, right? So in that case, this c input stream, this is correct. Okay, again, c out balance, c in balance. So now all the data values are entered and stored in customer name, address, cd, state, balance. How is it able to access? Using the object, right? So now after that, the compiler comes back to the closing braces, okay, and then control comes back to the next line statement. Okay, the line statement terminates, it comes to next line statement, customer dot print data, cus dot print data. So again, this calling function goes and calls this call function. Okay, so now same case, void print data void. Okay, now it will execute this function body. So whatever data we have entered using this C output stream, okay, customer name, so cust name, so the customer name will be displayed, so Mr. Sundarlal Jain. Okay, now one thing that you will notice is, okay, here here it's void, right? Normally in a function program, okay, what we do is that all the data that are entered, right, we pass it through the parameters or as arguments, right? Okay, we pass it through the parameters or as arguments, like in the case of from the calling function, like in the case of here, cus print data. Okay, suppose like we want to pass the balance, right? So one variable, the balance, this balance variable will be passed, and then in here another variable will be suppose like a double, okay, and then bal. Okay, so that variable will accept the value, right? But in this case, yesterday also I discussed about that, right? In this case, you don't need to pass the parameters or pass the arguments. Why? Because in using the classes and object, that is the advantage of classes and object, right? Using the classes and object, because here the member functions, this member function can directly access the data members. Why? Because the class has defined the data members and the member functions, okay, within the class declaration definition, and these data members and member functions belong to the object. Okay, so that's why, since the data members and the member functions, whether it be private or public, okay, both be private or public, it is able to access from here to here. Okay, so that's why that is the advantage. Okay, so what happened is that these here the member functions, when it says your customer name, it can directly access the data that is stored in customer name. When it says like address, it can directly access the data that is stored in address. Okay, so that's why here in classes and object, you don't need to pass arguments. Okay, because the members data members and member functions belongs to the object. Okay, so I hope that you have understood this program. Okay, so this a very easy program. Okay, uh, now again the same program, okay, but in a different way. Okay, so here now in this program you'll see that the example given below uses two member functions, input data and print data, outside the class using the scope resolution operator, and handles the input output operation to the customer class data members. Now this is actually the same like what I have taught you in the previous program. Okay, but this one is the only difference is that we have a different class name, that is customer. Okay, and then the data members names are different. Okay, and then here we use two member functions. Okay, two member functions, one for entering the value and the other for displaying the value. Okay, so much like the same first programs that I've taught you from. Okay, in one program is the member functions is defined inside the class that which we have just seen now. Okay, and in here, when the functions are declared, normally declared in the class declaration, so what will happen, the function definition is outside of the class declaration. Okay, so in that case we use the scope resolution operator. Okay, so here the header files. Okay, header files, Conayo Studio, and here same. Okay, private, so these are the data members, and can public. Okay, the member functions same. Okay, so input data, print data. Now here but here you will notice that only the member function names are written. So and here the class terminates, the class definition terminates here. So the function body is not defined here, the body of the function is not here, right? So this is just a normal function prototype, or a normal function declaration. Okay, but the function body is here and here, right? So to access this, okay, we have to declare object. So using the class name we declare an object cus. So similarly here also, okay, uh, here also we just have to use the calling function cus dot input data. Okay, so what it does, this calling function calls this call function. Now in the case of this, okay, since it is outside of the class declaration, okay, we cannot directly write like in the previous one, we cannot directly write like this, void input data void. Okay, it's not possible because it is outside of the class declaration. So uh, why, so that's why it is written here, void customer, the scope resolution, okay, dot 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 dot, and then input data, the member function name. Now you you might be you might ask the question like, okay, well, so is it necessary to means like associate the class name with the member function name using the scope resolution operator? Yes, it is very important when the member function is declared in the class. Okay, because this same because you have seen function overloading. Using the function overloading, what happened, you are able to reuse the same member function name again and again, right? So what if suppose you have a very lengthy program, okay, and you have many classes, one class, subclasses like that, right? And it may be that you may be using the same member function, okay, or you may be using the same member function name or maybe a different member function name also. Input data, display data, enter data, like that, right? Okay, so output data, so different name it may be also. But how do you associate, like in here in this class definition, we know that this member function and this data members belongs to this class customer, right? But outside of the class, how will we be able to link this with this so that is why we use this scope resolution operator, okay? And we use the class name, okay? So that suppose like void customer, okay, input data, void customer, okay, display data, void customer, okay, output data, okay, or void employee, input data, okay. So that way, okay, uh okay, the calling function will know which function to call, okay. The calling function will know which function to call, okay. So in that case it will call this particular function. I hope you're clear with why we're using the scope resolution operator and why we're using the class name, okay. Now yes, okay. So now students, I've observed that the videos are actually not properly visible, okay. But it's because like when I make the video, okay, it comes to around 4 GB, 5 GB, 6 GB, like that. So compressing it takes time, and then when it is again uploaded in YouTube, okay, again it get compressed. So that's why whatever I teach, okay, always have your textbook ready, okay. So from where I'm teaching and what I'm teaching, okay, you will know, like that, okay. Now coming back to yes, here, okay, again you see that the data details are same, okay. Gets customer name, gets address, gets cd, same, okay. And in the case of this function definition also, okay. So after the control comes back from here to here, okay, cust dot print data, so this calling function will call this call function, okay. After that it will start executing this cout statements, okay. So same, okay. So you'll be getting this output results, okay. So the difference between the previous program and this program is uh, in the first program, okay, the member functions were defined in the class definition itself. In the second program, in this program, the member functions are simply declared, okay. The member functions are simply normally declared in the class definition, and since the member functions body is outside of the class, okay, so you have to use the scope resolution operator, okay. Now for small programs, okay, this may seem unnecessary, but keep in mind that uh, using these classes and object concept, we can create real life programs, okay, real life problem solutions, okay. So real world programs, okay. So in such cases the program length will keep on increasing, 20, 30 pages and so on, okay. In such cases, this this concept of calling function, call function, okay, using the scope resolution operator, using private in terms of security, public protected, is very much essential, okay. So that is why uh, this is a much better improvement over the structured programming, okay. Now coming back to the next program, okay, this this is a bit different from the two other programs that I've taught you. In here, in the first two programs, you saw that we can have private access specifier as well as public access specifier in the program. Okay, but in this program, you see that we have a private member function also. Okay, so I'll just go through this. Okay, see if you could, this example demonstrates the use of public and private members. The program makes the customer data private and implements one. So the customer data means the data members are private and implements one private member function. So one member function is made private, okay, that is this cal underscore da, calculate the dearness allowance, okay. So is declared for calculating dearness allowance, okay, 120% of salary. So this is the formula that is to be applied, 120% of salary into salary, okay. So because the private functions cannot be called outside the customer class, right, when any data members that are made private or any member functions that are made private cannot be accessed outside the class, right, cannot be called outside the class. So what do we do? Also, two public member functions are declared. So in order to access the private data members or the private member functions, okay, we have two public member functions declared, so one for input and one for output, okay. So this private member function is just to calculate the dearness allowance, okay. So the two public member function, one will accept the input data and one will display the output data after processing the using these private member functions, okay. So after calculating the formula, so notice that the line that displays the class data members was removed from main, okay. So now the data members now are private and no longer directly accessible except by a member function of class employee. Now again we come back to the class employee. So here the class name is employee, okay, and then the access specifier is private, so the data members are all private. Here now you see that here we have some new variables. So employee code, employee name, employee designation, float employee salary, and float HRA and DRA. Okay, so house rent allowance and dearness allowance. Using the comma operator, we're using the comma operator to declare the two variables on the same line, because they are of the same data type, right? So instead of like this, we can also write float HRA semicolon and in the next line float DA semicolon, okay. But however, since uh, they are both of the same data type, okay, so it can also be written here also EMB salary comma HRA comma DA, okay, since all three are float data members. So it depends on the programs how to write, okay. Now after that, here again this is private, okay. So now this is a member function definition. So this is a private member function, and this member function, the name of the member function is calculate DA, and it has no return type and it does not pass or accept any parameters or arguments.